We've stood at the front lines of law, leadership, and public service. From the courtroom to the classroom, Attorney Karen Jimeno brings sharp legal insight, academic excellence, and a voice that has guided national conversations. Attorney Mike Toledo, a seasoned public affairs strategist and legal mind with years in media, corporate leadership, and government reform. Together, they bring law to life with experience, integrity, and the courage to ask hard questions. Two minds shaped by the law. Two voices trusted in and out of the courtroom. This is ABOGADO.
Good evening and welcome to ABOGADO, the show where we confront the most pressing legal and constitutional questions of our time. I'm Attorney Mike Toledo. While my partner, Attorney Karen Jimeno, is away this evening, so I'm a bit lonely, we carry on with a debate that strikes at the foundation of corruption, prosecution in our justice system. Here's our proposition.
In many corruption cases, wrongdoing at the highest levels is exposed because someone from the inside speaks up. A contractor, a government employee, even a co-conspirator. But what if that person also profited from the crime? Under Philippine law, an accused may be discharged and become a state witness if their testimony is indispensable and they appear less guilty than the others. But critics ask, should those who profited, whether contractors or public officials, be allowed to walk free in exchange for their testimony? Does this help dismantle corruption networks? Or does it reward wrongdoers who only cooperate when cornered? It's a choice between building strong cases and upholding public accountability. Should profiteers in corruption cases, from contractors to public officials, be barred from becoming state witnesses even when their testimony is indispensable to convict higher officials?
On the affirmative side, we have two seasoned litigators. First, very well-known face in Philippine television, Attorney Howard Calleja, Professor of Constitutional and Civil Law and Criminal, Civil, and Election Litigation lawyer. He holds a Master of Laws from the Duke University, a Diploma in International Law from the Hague Academy of International Law, and is admitted to both the Philippine Bar and the New York State Bar. He is also the Senior Managing Partner of Calleja Law. And also on the affirmative, Attorney Avisado. He earned his philosophy degree from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and his Juris Doctor from Ateneo University School of Law. A former debater and student leader, he has built a long career in litigation and now serving as senior partner at Gana, Atienza, Avisado law offices, where he heads the litigation department. So actually, this is the first time that we have two distinguished lawyers on one side, and now on the negative side, and she's a lady, and she's only alone. We have Attorney Margaret or Meg Grace Salido, Associate at De Leon, Arevalo, Gonzalez Law Offices. She holds dual degrees in BS Applied Economics and BS Marketing Management from De La Salle University. After years in corporate work and paralegal practice, she pursued law at the Toledo Law School, interning in intellectual property and human rights. And now, lady, gentlemen, before we begin, here's how tonight's discussion will unfold.
We begin with the opening statements. First, the speaker supporting the proposition presents their position in a focused 2-minute statement. Then, the speaker challenging the proposition offers their perspective, also within 2 minutes. The conversation then unfolds through two key subtopics. For each subtopic, the guest supporting the proposition presents their insights for 2 minutes, followed by a 2-minute perspective from the guest challenging the proposition. After perspectives have been presented, we move into the open exchange. A 6-minute free-flowing discussion where both guests ask questions, share points, and respond to each other directly. Once both subtopics have been explored, we proceed to closing reflections where each guest is given 2 minutes to summarize their key messages. And finally, the hosts step in with their own questions. In this 6-minute segment, the guests respond, clarify, and deepen the discussion, ensuring no critical point is left unexplored.
I guess that was very clear to the three of you. So now we begin with opening statements. The question: should profiteers in corruption cases be barred from becoming state witnesses, even when their testimony is indispensable? Attorney Howie, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, we are on the affirmative, and I would say vehemently that they should be barred even if their testimony is indispensable. The proposition is very clear, no? Profiteers, Mike, you profited already, you gained. So how can you even be said to be least guilty? Because in this flood control issues, I think it's not an afterthought. You have thought of it from the start, because I think if you were part of it as a conspirator, you cannot be said to be less guilty. Plus, of course, you have to think, is your testimony or his or her testimony the only one that can be relied on? I think there are other people that can put them into liability as well. So if they would just get out because they would just like to escape liability, I think that is not viable. Plus, I think I would subscribe also to the majority, it's not under the law, but I think the majority sentiment of the Filipino people right now that, you profited. So I think you have to return the money before we even talk about any state immunity or state witness protection in your behalf.
Oh, thank you so much, Howie. Now, how about you, Attorney Meg? Your opening statement on this issue.
I agree. I agree that there are requisites under the law, such as that the accused should not be the most guilty. However, I make this position in light of what is happening in the country now, and I feel that the right now is such a very important cultural movement, if I may, with regard to how we view public service. And so I think the testament or of the public sentiment is that we are seeing now public officers, or there's a statement that public officers should be the first ones to protect the integrity of public office, and they should be the first ones to look after the welfare of the public. And so if we have profiteers on one side, example contractors, who did profit from the flood control projects, and then you have public officials, public officers who swore to protect the public trust, then to me, the people more accountable or should be held more accountable are these public officials. And so we notice that it's a cultural thing. It's not just a legal thing. There are so many laws. There are new ones on procurement in 2024, for example. And yet, they don't completely cover all the angles. And that's because, as I said, it might be a cultural problem. And once we make a statement out there to say that, hey, the public officers are the first and foremost ones that are accountable here, and that profiteers, though their obligation is just to make money, of course, they're just corporate entities, then there's the statement that we stand as a people behind better public officers, not better contractors, better public officers.
Well, thank you so much for your opening statement, Attorney Meg. And now, we'd like to hear from you. You have 2 minutes, Attorney Alex.
Thank you, Attorney Mike. I agree with Attorney Calleja here, and I may just add that I refer to the 2 ways on how to discharge a state witness. First is executive through the Department of Justice by way of RA 6981, the Witness Protection, Security and Benefit Act, and judicial under Section 17 of Rule 119 of the revised Rules on Criminal Procedure. Both laws share a common requirement, and that is the accused does not appear to be the most guilty. And this is the requirement that I think the contractors and the public officials could never satisfy, because it is my position that both of them are equally the most guilty in bribery, corruption, and plunder cases. That is my position, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Attorney Alex. And now let's begin with the foundations. And you did mention already the rules of criminal procedure. Rule 119, particularly Section 17, 18, and 19 of the Rules of Court allows the discharge of an accused to become a state witness under certain conditions. And one of them is if you're the least guilty. But should profiteers from corruption be categorically excluded, even if they meet these requisites? Now, back to you, Attorney Howard, your thoughts.
I think, as I said, I would disagree. I would not allow the profiteers or the contractors from being state witness. And I agree with Attorney Alex here. They are equally liable together. No, I mean, even with Attorney Meg very nicely put it that we are after the public officials, and we put the public officials at a higher level of maybe accountability. But I think we cannot escape the equality of their liability of both the contractor and of the public official, because both of them connive. One cannot survive without the other. Plus, if you want to put them to jail, let's say the public official, there are other smaller persons involved in these ghost projects that may be allowed to, let's say, be a state witness because their participation is smaller. For example, a COA auditor. Anyway, all of this can be shown from the paper trail. You have a bidding, you have a project, and you cannot see the project. Then it's very clear. You don't need a testimony because it is clear from the documents, it is clear from what you see, and maybe, let's say, the COA auditor will say that he was forced or he had no choice but to certify that it was a finished project, when in fact, there's no project or not finished at all. So I think we have to identify really. We cannot just say that they are indispensable, because they are indispensable in the conspiracy and not indispensable in the conviction of the public official. So I think they should not be allowed to be a witness or be discharged as a witness in this instance.
Thank you, Attorney Howie. It's, in effect, what you say, it takes two to tango.
Yes.
So now, Attorney Meg, your view.
I think the benefit of having one of the co-conspirators as witness is that you can do, well, okay, but because in the flood control projects we've seen in the Senate inquiries that much of it are without actually paper trail. The cash that's dispersed to DPWH officials were, as said by the flood control contractors, were given in cash and in paper bags. And so you have this huge bureaucracy within the DPWH with the contractors that cover up the whole crime. And so what we're after here is that these thieves no longer be as thick as thieves. And so I feel that when you kind of crack that cooperation, then it would be easier. Well, it will not only be easier for prosecution to build a case, but also you have the ability for the state witnesses to disclose everything that we need for the highest accountability and liability on the part of whom I treated earlier as the ones with the highest legal and moral obligation to the people. So, for example, Vizcayas were in the Congress a week ago, and there Congressman De Lima was like, in your affidavit, it says, in this list of public officials that they've transacted with was preceded by the word including. So there is still interest there by witnesses to not disclose everything. And that's why it's important for these state witnesses to be completely on the other side of the fence and stand with prosecution.
with that. I'm glad you mentioned cash, because at the end of the day, I think that is if there's any weakness in the systemic fight against corruption in this country, it's actually the role of cash. Because cash is untaxed, cash is invisible, and the fact that you can move around. No, malaking, tinanong ko nga sa last episode namin bakit hindi napapansin yung pag-withdraw at pag-deposit ng malalaking amounts, no? Large amounts of cash are being withdrawn and deposited, and yet for some reason it was not flagged. Kaya siguro isa sa dapat natin titignan on the fixing of the institutional infirmities is talagang how do we now make it difficult for cash to be just transferred from one pocket to the other, or from being withdrawn or deposited from one bank to the other, or etc. etc. Isa sa dapat patignan talaga yan. Now, Attorney Alex, you've heard Attorney Meg eloquently defending her position. So, what do you say? Anyway, you started talking about already on Rule 119.
Yes, sir. Actually, she eloquently defended her side. But me and Attorney Calleja, we have been fortunate to be on the prosecution and on the defense in some cases. And we can share that the prerogative, the power to discharge a witness is used very sparingly by the state. In fact, it is considered as a surrender of the state of its right to prosecute. It is, in fact, an admission that without the contractor, without the public official, the government does not have enough evidence to convict. And I do not agree with that. There are now, we know, at least four government agencies investigating. We have the Ombudsman, who created a special panel of investigators, led by Attorney Cesar Asuncion. We have the House, who is investigating. We have the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. And we have now the Independent Commission on Infrastructure under Justice Andy Reyes and with Mayor Magalong as a special advisor. With all the resources available to the government, I am confident that they can gather enough evidence to convict the contractors and the government officials. There's no need to concede this early and discharge the contractors or the public officials as state witness. No need. It's too early, Attorney Mike. It's too early. We should let the investigation proceed. And once they secure enough solid and credible evidence, we will be confident of a conviction. No need to turn them into state witnesses.
One point that you raised, Attorney Alex, and siguro kailangan malaman natin mga kababayan, sinabi mo na based on statistics, it is rare that government prosecutors would invoke or use this RA on the Witness Protection Program or the Rules of Court, Rule 119. When you say rare, how rare?
Sir, it is first a categorical admission on the department, on the Department of Justice, on the state, that without the testimony of this person, the government does not have enough evidence to convict. But if you look at the situation now, there are several, if you look at the requirements, there are several ways how to corroborate and prove corruption, plunder. You can prove through the CCTVs, the bank accounts, the persons delivering monies, the logbooks, all the documents mentioned by Attorney Calleja can be retrieved, gathered, and it will show that there was actually no project that was conducted, and yet the full amount was was already released to the contractor. So that is our position, sir. The government has enough resources to gather evidence and convict. There's no need to discharge the contractors and the government officials as state witnesses.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Alex. Thank you so much to all of you. And now we go into this portion that we open the floor for a 6-minute exchange. So, attorneys, you may rebut, respond, ask questions, debate some more. Just be civil. Okay. So,
we have to be nice, Mike, because we have one lady here.
Of course. Chivalry.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. See that?
Baka itanong ko kay Attorney Meg, that's why she's on the other side. She might be absent when I taught this in Ateneo Law. She was my student.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So I'm just putting it lightly because we have to have a light conversation here, Attorney Mike.
Okay, so who wants to start to ask the question?
Ladies first.
Well, ladies first. Chivalry definitely is not dead here.
Well, okay, it was interesting actually how this issue came about, because how the public picked up on the issue is through the contractors themselves, who were, I guess, less guarded than the public officials, who were bound to disclose their assets and liabilities. And so this, after the SONA, where President Marcos was mentioned the flood control project,
Yes.
the public also Vico Soto's flagging of the feature of the Discayas.
Yes.
It was there where the pieces of this DPWH mess was picked up. And so I feel like just from the fact that there were from the fact that much of this mess was never known to us, despite the laws, despite the execution of these laws, or the full gamut of AMLA, of procurement, etc., etc. It goes to show how difficult prosecution is when you're up against the people in an institution which is the most powerful in society. So that's why, again, going back to the proposition, I think that's why you need those people who will like crack that institutional complicity. And to me, the contractors who, though profiteered or profited from the transactions, have already done that and have the power to show us more than just the regular operations of the government that have been happening or have been empowered to do so in so many years. Additionally, like if I could go back to the relevance of this proposition given the culture or the times, the call of the times. Something that was as big as this happened in 2016, and that was the pork barrel scam. And again, for me, it's a cultural phenomenon what we're doing now. It's a chance for us to say, oh, public officials, you're the most accountable, you're the most liable, and therefore, provided that requisites in the Rule 119 are given, you are supposed to be, penalized most.
Okay, gentlemen, that was indeed.
Let me just clarify. The pork barrel was 2013, not 2016.
Are you talking about the Napoles?
The Napoles,
Yes.
that was 2013. And I think just to recall on the argument of my good student over here.
Did you give her a high grade?
I think so. That's why she's a good lawyer now.
My God. Okay.
I think, if we look at it because of the amounts, it's more or less likely to be plunder. Okay? If we are talking about giving money from one person to the other, having a paper trail, that's bribery. And I think we have to distinguish one from the other.
Yes.
And I think getting for plunder, as already discussed, there are a lot of other individuals that can contribute the information for the crime or for the element of plunder, number one. Number two, in addition to testimony already been stated, there's a lot of paper trail.
Yes.
And it's so easy. It's a ghost project. You don't need any science there. You have a project, you have a bid, and you disperse money. Money has been accepted, and there's nothing to see. Second, the contractors are not forced to do this. Actually, contractors, even in the testimony in the Senate and in the Congress, you can even hear that they have given advances. So even before it was bidded out, even before money of government has been channeled to them, they already advanced to the legislator or to the DPWH or something. What does that mean? They are basically a principal, not only co-conspirator, but a principal, because they actually advanced the money ahead of everything. So they even instigated all of this plunder of the government. And thirdly, I would just like to add that another requisite there is that the individual to be excused as a state witness should not be guilty of any other crime. So I can just think of more than 10 or at least 5 other crimes that they might be held accountable for. So that in itself would disqualify them. Plus, there are, as of now, I heard Secretary Vin saying there's more than 100 ghost projects that they have uncovered at this early stage. So if you say one ghost project against another, that's 10 crimes or 10 acts. So would we excuse them for 100 acts? I think that's very unlikely.
And then those ghost projects, of course, I guess the other crimes that they would be committed would be, for example, falsification of public documents,
Falsification, yes.
rig bidding, and all these things. So marami talaga, no? May punto ka doon.
Against the Procurement Act.
Yes.
So there's a lot of other crimes that they can hold be accountable. And siguro just for some levity aside, that's why we cannot see the paper trail. Back in 2013, ang pinag-usapan natin na Attorney Mike, shoebox lang.
Yes, shoebox
Ngayon,
lang.
box na ng noodles at box na ng ano. So lumalaki ang ano. Hindi na, sabi ko nga yung bilyonaryo TV mo, dapat yan trilyonaryo na because ang ninanakaw ngayon, trillions of pesos.
Well, quickly, Attorney Alex, we ran out of time with the 6 minutes.
Attorney Calleja mentioned the case of Janet Napoles.
Yes.
I remember back in the day, at that time, we were the lawyers of Senator T.G. Gana,
Oh,
who was the chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee,
Yes.
who investigated the Janet Napoles. There was a call at that time, Attorney Mike, if you remember, that the root cause of all this mess is the pork barrel. Remove the pork barrel. For all legislators, in fact, it was we had the likes of ex-senator, the late Senator Joker Arroyo, now Senator Panfilo Lacson. They never received any pork barrel because they don't want to be associated with any issue of corruption. And so that they will focus on their principal role, which is to legislate. And so now that this is another chance to revive that call, to remove the pork barrel from all legislators, from the House, the Senate, and let them concentrate on their role of legislation. That is just another...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Attorney Alex. I'm glad you mentioned Senator Ping Lacson because I've known Senator Ping for a long time, and from the very beginning, when he became senator for the first time, he already said no to the pork barrel. And I guess that's a good point that maybe someday we get rid of the pork barrel. So another topic, in fact, for Abogado in the future. Now let's turn to the question of ethics and accountability. Is it right to allow someone who has profited from corruption to walk scot-free just to convict a higher official? Or is this a necessary trade-off to strengthen prosecutions? Now we'll start with you, Attorney Alex. Let's hear your perspective.
I said earlier, Attorney Mike, that I am personally convinced that with all the resources available to the government, we have enough evidence to convict the contractors and the government officials. I do not subscribe to the proposition that without them, we cannot convict. Without them, we would not have known. Are we supposed to even thank them for stealing billions and even trillions of government money? No. In fact, it's not a strengthening of, it would be more to strengthen our prosecution system and justice system to convict them and punish them for this act so that no one will follow. Because if you give them the easy way out, there is a high chance that again, the government's funds will be plundered again and they will just turn state witness. And that's their way out. No, I do not agree to that. Most people do not agree.
Thank you, Attorney Alex. Now, Attorney Meg, your response to that.
Yes. For me, in terms of ethics and accountability, I've mentioned earlier the issue on accountability, and I've said that it is my view that the public officials should be held more accountable in corruption cases. And so, would I be willing to let the contractors go free if I can gather and prosecute and penalize the big fish? Yes. Will I be willing to let the contractors go if I can start a new culture within government agencies to say that there will be people who will tell after you? Or yes, I would be willing to let the contractors go free. Additionally, there was this one interview there was an interview where the Discayas would say they were forced to give the kickbacks because they would be losing the subsequent bids if they did not. And so, again, we see the power dynamics in display. We see how the government, the hugeness and the power of government is compared to just these contractors. So whether or not you have 1,000 contractors who are immoral, who are morally depraved, as opposed to one DPWH that will stand up against them, you wouldn't have a crime. But if you have a couple of these DPWH who are willing to cover up or not speak at all, if there are contractors that are immoral, unethical, then that's how power works in the government vis-a-vis the private players that are transacting with the government.
Thank you so much, Attorney Meg. And now, Attorney Howie, your perspective on the ethics and accountability.
I think it's a simple saying, Attorney Mike, there is no excuse for corruption. And we cannot use this excuse to excuse the contractors or those who profited. No? So, as I would agree with Attorney Alex over here, there's really no need for them to be excused as a state witness. Plus, the ethics of accountability. We have to make it accountability. We have to make corruption difficult and painful to everybody. We cannot just make it an excuse. Otherwise, it will be repeated again. It will be used as a defense. It will be used as an excuse for later individuals to do the same thing. So if we want to stop and curb corruption, I think we have to stop it from all levels, from everybody, without excuse, without, kumbaga sa Tagalog, Attorney Mike, wala tayong sasantuhin. Okay? So just like now, you know, everybody is in flood, binabaha na tayo ng corruption, and we want, dahil umuulan, we want umbrellas without the Rolls Royce. Would we get somebody, would we allow somebody buying a Rolls Royce for an umbrella just to get scot-free when we can even indict her and everybody else, even without her help?
And forfeit the Rolls Royce and the umbrella.
And forfeit everything. Let them bring it, give it back.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Attorney Howie. Now, again, we go to that portion wherein we have 6 minutes wherein you can ask questions from one another or you can just rebut and ask for clarification. So, earlier on, it was Attorney Meg who started it, and now perhaps, I'm sure Attorney Meg won't mind if the gentleman would start the ball rolling. So, who wants to start?
Well, as I said, to me, there's really nothing too much more to add. I mean, I would respect the position of Attorney Meg, and just like saying that, you know, if he wants a better prosecution, better chance of prosecution, we have to excuse one or two of them. But I guess me and Attorney Alex, we do not subscribe to that. Having been in litigation, you know, after filing the case, you know how strong your case is. And to discharge one, we have to understand, if you discharge, you even have to file that in court, and the judge would even have to decide if that person is can be validly discharged. No, so it's not easy, and it is not done lightly, because, as I said, it can be, we can prosecute with other means, even without their help. And having been able to profit, having been the most, to me, equally guilty, if not the most guilty, because we cannot say that we have to make guilty the public official, because even if we go to the Sandigan Bayan, you know, private individuals are charged in the Sandigan Bayan. Why? Because they are in conspiracy. Why? Because in conspiracy, both of you are equally guilty. So we cannot excuse one from the other.
Attorney Alex?
I may just add, sir, there is an ongoing debate right now whether the contractors who looted government funds should be allowed to use government resources to protect them under the Witness Protection Program. Tama ba yan? And there is a view which I share na hindi naman yata tama. After they looted, after nagnakaw sila, resources pa ng gobyerno pa magbabayad para protektahan sila. So parang napakahirap, Attorney Meg, napakahirap tanggapin. It's a bitter pill to swallow for the ordinary Filipino. Bakit ganon? And people sometimes are confused that admission to the witness protection program is actually equivalent to a discharge as a state witness. So parang doon din ang pupuntahan. That's why there's an uproar, Attorney Mike, na bakit sila ipapasok under witness protection program? I-discharge mo na sila. Gobyerno pa magbabayad sa ano nila. May housing pa yan. Meron pang allowances. The security detail na ibibigay sa kanila. After nilang magnakaw, napakahirap po tanggapin.
How about Attorney Alex, kunyari, okay, ito mga contractors na ito, no, ang dami nila ninakaw, isusoli nila lahat. Tapos pasok sila sa witness protection program. Ayan ba'y acceptable sa'yo?
Restitution, actually, sir, is not a requirement. But it does not eradicate or erase the crimes that they committed. So committed na yung crimes eh. You do not steal, and then once you get caught, teka, soli ko na lang alis na ako. Hindi siya department store. Even in a department store, once nag-shoplift ka, kahit isoli mo, huli ka na eh. Hindi na po pwede.
How about the amount, Attorney Meg, or anyone? Would the amount matter? If it's so huge or if it's not that big? So, sa tingin nyo?
Sa akin, it doesn't really matter. You know, a peso stolen from the coffers of government against 1 peso, against 1 million is still the same. It's still stealing. It's still corruption from government. So I think what we want to do is curb corruption at any level. But I think what's glaring here, Attorney Mike, is sabi ko nga, hindi na bilyonaryo ito eh. Trilyonaryo na. Grabe na. So, you know, if you just buy a Rolls Royce because you want an umbrella, I can give you an umbrella without the Rolls Royce. I think doon nagagalit din yung taong bayan. And I think what is really appalling, just to add to Attorney Alex here, if we can just put somebody in jail for a can of tuna, a can of sardines, and then para bang sinabi mo, o pag nagnakaw ako ng trilyon at bilyon, pwede akong state witness. So it is a gift if you steal more, and a disservice if you steal a can of sardines for a starving family.
Pero totoo yan, kasi marami na tayong alam ng mga kaso, no, na some public officials nagkamali lang pagpirma, and what is involved is really a small amount. But unfortunately, the Sandigan Bayan found him guilty for malversation of public funds or falsification of public documents, and the amount is definitely much less than what we're talking about. So, Attorney Meg, what can you say to the statements just mentioned by these two gentlemen?
Yeah, I actually agree with Attorney Alex in a way that obviously becoming state witness will use the resources of the government. But
Yes.
this does not happen in a vacuum. We are trying to determine the priorities of our social norms, of the government, of the policy of the administration,
Yes.
or whatever. So, if I go back to the state witnesses or allowing state witnesses to be, and the effect is that we're able to prosecute the bigger players, the more powerful players, or the players who are able to make this systemic inside DPWH or the Congress, then it would, personally, I would think that it is a bigger and more important priority. Because again, it's the public officials are the ones that created the system. Additionally, there is also, there's a list of public officials in the affidavit of Discaya. And can we imagine if we're able to prosecute that full list because his cooperation is given, then what the prosecution or what the state can gather back in terms of money will be much bigger. If I may also, can I?
No, quickly.
Okay.
Please. Yes.
Also, the matter of perjury, the matter of plunder was mentioned a while ago. And interestingly, plunder has become very difficult to prosecute. There were charges filed against current officers, public officers, and elected officials. And yet, who was, the one convicted was somebody who's not in power. And so, wouldn't it be nice to have a public official be penalized by plunder, which is for which it's reclusion perpetua is imposed. That's a huge statement for me. For a public official to be prosecuted to the full extent and strength of state resources and be put behind bars for good.
Oh, thank you very much, Atty. Meg. Now, we'll pause for a quick break. Don't go away. When we return, our guests will deliver their final reflections. This is Abogado. Welcome back. You're watching Abogado. Tonight's debate centered on whether profiteers in corruption cases should be disqualified from becoming state witnesses, even when their testimony is crucial against higher officials. We have with us attorneys Howard Calleja, Alex Avisado, and Margaret Grace Buensalido. Now we turn to closing reflections. Attorney Howie, can we begin with you?
Yes, thank you, Attorney Mike, and again, thank you to Attorney Meg over there. I think at the end of the day, we have won each other's sentiment, no? Because we all want accountability. I think it's just a matter of whether we would allow a person to be excused, but I think we have agreed that that person is equally liable or is part of all this scam or all of this fraud that's coming out. No? So I think at the end of the day, it's really how do we make these people accountable for corruption? And siguro, Attorney Mike, idagdag ko na lang dito na aanyayahan ko, I will invite everybody for September 21, our rally for accountability and fight against corruption.
Anong oras yung sa inyo?
2 o'clock.
Kasi meron din as 9 daw eh.
2 o'clock sa EDSA. No? Of course, we start 9 a.m. Pag sinabi nilang wala kaming group chat, nag-uusap po kami. Magkasama ho yan because from 9 a.m., yung mga tao doon, they're all welcome to converge in EDSA at 2 o'clock. So let's fight corruption and ask for accountability, but let's make our protest, our indignation peaceful. So yun lang. And again, I congratulate again Attorney Meg, and again, at the end of the day, we want all of them accountable.
Thank you, Attorney Howie, Professor Howie. And how about you, Attorney Alex?
Thank you, Attorney Mike, Attorney Meg, Attorney Howie. I'd just like to say what I said earlier, that I think and I believe that the profiteers, the contractors, the government officials should not be discharged as state witnesses. There are already 4 or maybe 5 government agencies now investigating. And it is my position that the government would gather enough evidence, it has enough resources to convict all those persons responsible for the corruption of government. Yun lang po, maraming salamat.
Thank you, Attorney Alex and Attorney Meg.
I'd like, of course, I'd like first to thank Attorney Alex, Attorney Howie, and for it really is a privilege to be on the same table as you, of course. And Attorney Howie was my professor in law school, so this is very fun. My proposition is that the profiteers should not be barred from being considered a state witness, only because we recognize that there are trade-offs. And here the trade-off is, can we prosecute higher officials and public elected if they are? Can we prosecute them to the highest extent of the law if we're able to consider the profiteers as state witness? And to me, I don't know if it's me as a millennial speaking, but it might be that because we recognize this as a critical juncture in our history, I guess. And like for the longest time, public officials have been hidden in the shadows, not knowing really what happens to our money. And so this opportunity where the public is awake and there's a chance to enter that area where we mostly never get to see, we'd like to take that opportunity to say that, hey, you public officials, you are the most accountable. We trusted you with our votes or with our money. And when it comes down to this, we would like to demand the most from you. And so if we can demand the most from them by compromising the prosecution for the state witnesses or profiteers, then we'd be willing to do that.
Thank you very much, Attorney Meg. How I wish I could say that among us millennials. but anyway, we're running out of time, but we still have a few minutes left. So allow me, with your indulgence, to all of you, if I can ask a question, and you can answer individually, of course. Kasi alam mo, alam naman natin na mayroong RA 1379, di ba? Etong batas na to, para sa ating mga kababayan, no? Etong batas na to kasi iba rin ang dating dito eh. Kasi dito, kunyari, pag nakita ng gobyerno na ang lifestyle mo, kabuhayan mo, the way you live, the assets that you have, are way beyond your salary as declared in your SALN or your income tax return, etc., the burden of proof, unlike in the other cases, no, the onus, probandi, pare konting Latin para mataas yung talent fee ko dito. The onus probandi or the burden of proof is on the public official to prove that he can actually afford the lifestyle that he has, the assets that are in his possession. And pag hindi na-prove, pag ito ay hindi ma-prove ng public official, for example, hindi niya na-prove na ito'y na-inherit niya, hindi niya na-prove na ito ay kasi yung asawa niya mayaman, or meron siyang negosyo na very successful, or baka nanalo siya sa casino, di ba? If he cannot prove that, the government can already forfeit, pwede nang bawiin ng gobyerno ang assets ng public official na ito. Ito ay isang lumang batas, 1955, kung hindi ako nagkakamali. Ang akin lang tanong sa inyong tatlo, bakit hindi ginagamit itong batas na ito ngayon o noon pa? Maybe we can start with you, Professor?
I think that's why the SALN evolved, no? Because this is one way to check really kung yung lifestyle. Kasi lifestyle check ito. If you cannot really prove your lifestyle, then I think the SALN would be the one really to, kumbaga, a first line of defense or first line of document to convict them. But sadly, for the last, since Ombudsman Martires was there, talagang blinak niya itong SALN. So hopefully, ma-open natin itong SALN again na it would be allowed as a document to be given out. And hopefully, I think another way to open this is really make it a prerequisite or a condition for public officials to really sign a waiver, of their bank assets, of their bank accounts. Kasi that would open also the floodgates for us to investigate. So, at saka, I think that's not, yung mga wag nating gawing cool, wag nating maging millennial, yung pagiging influencer nila or whatever, no? Let's shame, let's make it bad to be corrupt. Hindi kasi naging ngayon pag in style ka, may aeroplano ka, maganda kotse mo, in style, sabay tayo dyan. I think turuan natin yung taong bayan na hindi yan tama. So I think from that we can start hopefully to go back to checking that and make it really painful to be corrupt.
Before I go to you, Attorney Alex, maganda yung punto mo kanina din also, Attorney Howie, no? Talagang maganda talaga is to ibalik ulit yung nahihiya kapag may corruption. Diba? Talaga dapat yun ang magiging attitude natin. Moving forward. Hindi lang na sa mga tao sa gobyerno, but tayong lahat bilang isang bayan Pilipino. Now, Attorney Alex.
Sir, 100% I agree with Attorney Howie. At dagdag ko lang din, no? Dun sa proposals and suggestions nung araw pa. Let's take away the temptation of public officials. Tanggalin natin yung pork para malalaman natin kung sino talaga yung sincere na mag-serve. Lagay natin yung SALN, nandiyan na yung SALN. Sabayan ng waiver. Tingnan natin kung sino pa with no pork barrel, with the SALN and the waiver, malalaman mo kung sino talaga yung willing pang mag-serve sa gobyerno natin. Because wala na eh. You took away all the opportunities for them to profit from all government transactions. Yun, sir.
Thank you, Attorney Alex. Before I talk to or ask Attorney Meg, quickly lang, kasi na-raise mo na rin yung Bank Secrecy Act. Correct me if I'm wrong, pero kung hindi ako nagkakamali, tayo pa rin ang isa sa mga remaining countries na still have very strict bank secrecy laws. Matagal na pong talagang inuudyok at kinakausap tayo ng ibang mga governments, pati na yung mga international organizations on anti-money laundering, transparency and all that. Ngunit hanggang ngayon, ay medyo talagang strict pa rin yung ating Bank Secrecy Act. So, quickly. Ano reaction niyo doon?
Yeah, that's why nga we would like them to sign a waiver. Or, Attorney Mike, if you vote me and Alex to Congress, we can file a bill to fix that Bank Secrecy Act.
I will support you, Atty.
Party
Calleja.
list. Mayroon tayong abogado party list, ha?
Pero alam mo yung party list, questionable din yan kasi yung party list became a intro by the contractors.
Naging topic din namin yan. Well, anyway, thank you. How about you, Attorney Meg?
Yes. I echo Attorney Howie's sentiment on the SALN, which is very, very important because if I could, my boss in my law firm, his name is Attorney Dina De Leon, he requested SALNs of the president and the vice president, and because of the memorandum by Ombudsman Martires, he was declined access to them. The ombudsman said, "Go get permission from the OVP," and then the OVP says, "No, go get permission from the ombudsman." So it really is difficult thing. I guess it has become difficult to police our public officials, and so I think what needs to be done is like the law that you mentioned. Our legislators should find ways to empower the public to police the public officials and allow them those channels and that right to access information. That's another issue because the right to information is not completely available to the public from the government. And so the information coupled with the empowered constituency that we see now, especially in the September 21 movement that will go on this weekend. I think those two things can be a very powerful thing that could, change our culture, change our generation, if I may.
Well, thank you so much, Attorney Meg. Indeed, that has been a very, very interesting, informative, robust discussion on a very burning issue, and perhaps it will still take some time before we really understand and comprehend what would be the best way. Because at the end of the day, as you correctly pointed out by Attorney Howie and everyone else agrees, at the end of the day, what we want to do is really fight corruption. Fight corruption at its very core, to take away that kind of attitude, to make it difficult and embarrassing to be corrupt, to make it really expensive to be corrupt, to say the least. So again, our thanks to Attorney Howie Calleja, Attorney Alex Avisado, Attorney Meg or Margaret Grace Gwen Salido for lending their expertise and conviction to this debate. As tonight's discussion proves, the fight against corruption is not only about evidence and testimony, but also about ethics, accountability, and the values we uphold in our justice system. This has been Abogado. I'm Mike Toledo. Good night.